Pages 231 to 232. Doc reaches the top of the clock tower and looks down to Marty, who has finally found the end of the wire. And given how difficult this task was for poor Marty, I kinda imagine his waving to be less "hey look I found it" and more the kind of hands up in the air waving that Kermit the Frog might do if he just won the lottery.
Looking down, he saw Marty, 5 stories below, waving the paddle plug which he had just located.
Doc throws down the rope, Marty ties the cable to it, and Doc pulls it up. So far, so good. Marty still wants to warn Doc about the terrorists, so he tries again.
Marty cupped his hands around his mouth and shouted as loudly as he could. "I gotta tell you about the future, Doc. Please listen to me." The words were lost amid a new rush of wind which nearly tore the rope from Doc's grasp. "The future," Marty yelled. "On the night I travel back in time, the terrorists show up and get you." "Terror what?" "Terrorists. Bong. Bong."
That's the clock tower. It's tolling 10 o'clock, and Marty is so pissed that Doc can't hear him anymore that he expresses his anger at reality exactly how Miss Piggy would.
Kicking angrily at the ground, Marty waited, knowing he hadn't a prayer of being heard.
"Ha book Marty, the more you act like Muppet Marty the more I like you. Keep kicking that ground." Anyway, in the movie Doc yells,
"Look at the time! You got less than 4 minutes!"
Marty then takes off in the car. In the book, Doc just
gestures wildly towards the DeLorean, then at his watch,
and then finally yells,
"Run, boy, run."
Then Marty drives off, and instead of Doc cheering and kissing his hands like he does in the movie, which always struck me as an adorable and sincere response, Doc stands around and talks to himself, because everyone in this story talks to themselves, because whoever wrote the screenplay thought that's the only way to show what a character was thinking.
"Good," he whispered. "Now all I have to do is make sure he's not barreling down the street for nothing."
Doc creeps along the clock tower edge and has some more time to talk to himself.
"I'll be alive in 1985, he said, realizing even as he said it that he was whistling past the graveyard. "I'll be alive in 85, so I'm safe now." The words came out, but he knew they were fallacious. His being alive in 1985 was predicated on his not climbing clock towers in 1955. "Well," he gasped. "Let's just get it done."
And I can see why they didn't include that in the movie. It's a line that raises a lot of questions about time travel that you don't really want to be distracted by right now. Plus, it phrases them in a "I'm gonna survive" way, when a more dramatic way to present them is in a "if I fall and die it'll be a paradox and the timeline gets destroyed" way instead, so it's not even an optimally phrased distraction. Page 233. Remember when I said there was another point where this book called Steven Spielberg Presents Back to the Future, a Robert Zemeckis film, the novel by George Gipe based on a screenplay by Robert Zemeckis and Bob Gale, actually improves on the movie? This is the point, cats and kittens. Here's how it happens in the movie.
Damn it, Doc, why did you have to tear up that letter? We had more time. Wait a minute. I got all the time I want. I got a time machine. I can just go back early and warn him. Okay, 10 minutes ought to do it.
This is where movie Marty acts like book Marty, because if he's got all the time he wants, why is he cutting it so close? 10 minutes isn't that long, dude. Maybe give yourself an hour or so. Get to Doc early, let him know, handle any problems that pop up as they appear. Maybe have a nice chat. In our story, Book Marty has a similar, yet suckier, epiphany.
"That's it," he said finally. "There's no way I can have more time at this end, but why can't I have make time at the other end?"
And here's where the book actually improves on it. The time machine's controls haven't been specified too clearly in the book, and so what happens here is Gipe cheats and imagines they've got a control that lets you adjust the destination time upwards or downwards by, I don't know, pushing an up button or something. And that button adjusts it by 1 and sometimes 2 minutes, I guess.
With that, He began pushing the appropriate buttons on the destination time keypad so that it moved from 1:30 to 1:29 and even earlier. "Sure," he murmured. "I'll just show up in 1985 a few minutes before the terrorists shoot Doc and warn him then." He watched as the destination time readout changed from 1:26 to 1:24 and then paused, wondering if 7 minutes was enough.
I mean, he's still our incredibly thick book Marty, as he's using this up or down button to adjust the time rather than just punching it in directly. Maybe he's afraid of a typo sending him to the wrong decade. It's the only explanation I can come up with. But we finally have an explanation for why Marty gives himself so little time to fix things. Because it's at this point that the car turns off and won't turn back on again, and Marty
growls, come on, don't tell me I came this far to run out of gas."
So there you have it. Marty only gave himself a few minutes because he'd only scrolled the time back a little ways before the car turned off and he got distracted by more pressing matters. Nicely done, crappy book. And that, my friends, is the end of this page. I mean, there's still a lot to go, but this page is over.